What if the angels that John Dee and Edward Kelley claimed to summon were not the divine messengers of heaven, shining with celestial light and guiding humanity toward truth, but instead something far darker, something that wore the mask of holiness to hide intentions we cannot comprehend? From the ornate chambers of Elizabethan England to the hidden libraries of secret societies, the story of Enochian magic has always carried with it an air of deep unease, an unsettling whisper that something is not quite what it seems. At its surface, Enochian magic promises communion with the angels, a direct connection to a higher order, a glimpse into the machinery of the cosmos itself. But beneath that promise lies a shadow, a tension between revelation and terror, wisdom and manipulation that has haunted every practitioner who dared to engage with it. Enochian magic is a system built on the claim that certain angels spoke directly to Dee and Kelley, revealing a language, a set of rituals, and a cosmology that transcended anything known to human knowledge at the time. It is a system both intricate and alien, with rules, alphabets, and angelic hierarchies so complex that even centuries later, scholars and occultists struggle to fully understand it. Its reputation has always been controversial, because alongside the visions of divine illumination, there are accounts of coercion, fear, and what can only be described as psychological torment. The angels were not always gentle guides. Sometimes their instructions were bewildering, morally troubling, or outright terrifying, leaving the line between divine messenger and demonic trickster painfully blurred. And this is the central question that haunts the story of Enochian magic. Are these angels truly divine? Beings of pure light seeking to guide humanity toward hidden wisdom? Or are they something else entirely? Entities exploiting human curiosity and devotion for purposes we cannot fathom. In the following journey, we will explore the origins of Enochian magic, the strange language that forms its backbone, the nature of the angels themselves, and the chilling instructions and visions that Dee and Kelley received. We will trace the influence of this system through centuries of occult practice and attempt to confront the terrifying ambiguity at its core. At the end, the question will remain: when the angels speak, who or what is really listening? And what are we truly hearing? The story of Enochian magic begins in the late 16th century, a time of profound curiosity, ambition, and fear. John Dee, a man whose intellect and reputation rivaled that of any scholar in Elizabethan England, was more than just an advisor to Queen Elizabeth II. He was a polymath, a man whose pursuits spanned astronomy, mathematics, alchemy, astrology, navigation, and the occult. Dee saw the universe as a vast, interconnected web, one that could be understood not merely through science, but through spiritual insight, through a communion with forces beyond human comprehension. Yet his ambition was not merely academic. Dee sought knowledge that was divine, knowledge that would allow humanity to glimpse the hidden order of creation itself. To him, magic was not superstition. It was the key to understanding God's plan, the path to ultimate wisdom. Edward Kelley, by contrast, was a man of a different temperament, a medium and scryer who claimed the ability to see and communicate with spirits. Kelley's life had been marked by wandering, petty crime, and a restless ambition that made him both indispensable and dangerous to Dee. When the two men met, it was the combination of Dee's scholarly rigor and Kelley's claimed spiritual gifts that set the stage for something extraordinary, something that would blur the line between divine revelation and occult peril. Using crystal balls, polished obsidian mirrors, and other scrying tools, Kelley would enter trance-like states and relay messages he claimed came directly from angels. These messages were intricate, sometimes startlingly precise, and often delivered in a language that Dee would record meticulously. The angelic communications were the foundation of Enochian magic. Dee kept detailed journals of hundreds of sessions, noting every word, symbol, and instruction that the angels provided. These sessions often involved long hours of meditation, intense focus, and ritual preparation. The angels dictated a language, a set of calls or keys, and detailed a cosmology that described the structure of the universe, the hierarchy of angels, and the forces that governed both human and divine realms. For Dee, the line between seeking divine guidance and encountering something profoundly dangerous was thin and continually tested. In some sessions, the angels offered instructions that were morally confounding, urging behaviors that today would seem shocking or repulsive, yet at the time were presented as necessary for spiritual progress. Dee's quest was, in essence, a pursuit of forbidden knowledge cloaked in the guise of holy inquiry. He sought a direct line to God, believing that the angels' teachings would allow him to unlock the ultimate mysteries of creation. Yet the very act of attempting to pierce the veil between the human and the divine opened doors to experiences that were far from comforting. Kelley's presence as medium ensured that the communications were mediated by human frailty, desire, and ego, introducing a layer of ambiguity into every session. Were the messages truly divine, or were they the product of Kelley's subconscious mind, or something else entirely manipulating both men for purposes they could not see? It is within this tension, between the pursuit of ultimate knowledge and the lurking possibility of deception, that Enochian magic was born. It is a system rooted in brilliance and ambition, but shadowed by fear and uncertainty. A reminder that when humans attempt to touch the divine, the cost may be higher than any mortal imagination can measure. Dee and Kelley became conduits, not merely for angels, but for something that continues to haunt every student of Enochian magic. The possibility that what is presented as heavenly guidance might conceal intentions beyond comprehension. A subtle manipulation that leaves the seeker uncertain whether they are in the presence of light or darkness. At the heart of Enochian magic lies its most mysterious and unnerving element, the language itself. Dee and Kelley claimed that the angels spoke in a tongue that predated human speech, a pure language of creation, the language Adam spoke before the fall, a conduit between humanity and the divine. Unlike Latin or Greek, which could be learned and analyzed, Enochian resisted conventional understanding. Its grammar was irregular yet systematic, its sounds alien yet precise, and its alphabet, 21 letters arranged in forms that seemed almost alive, defied ordinary comparison. The words themselves carried a weight, an energy that practitioners have long described as tangible, a force that seems to resonate beyond mere human articulation. Reading or speaking them was not merely an intellectual act. It was an engagement with something otherworldly, a confrontation with a power that could uplift or unhinge the mind. Modern linguists and scholars have debated whether the language is entirely fabricated or whether it contains properties that defy naturalistic explanation. Some argue that Dee and Kelley, working from complex occult traditions and their own intellect, may have constructed a sophisticated cipher or glossolalia, a language of pure invention. Others point to the consistent grammatical patterns, the recurrence of phonemes, and the astonishing specificity of the keys and calls as evidence that the language could not have been entirely human in origin. Practitioners who have attempted to use Enochian in modern rituals frequently report experiences that are difficult to rationalize. Visions that arrive without warning, emotions that surge uncontrollably, sensations of pressure, heat, or cold in response to spoken words. It is as if the very act of pronouncing certain syllables tunes the practitioner into frequencies beyond ordinary perception, into dimensions that may be divine or far more sinister. The alphabet itself is a puzzle. Each letter is distinct, yet every combination seems to carry symbolic and functional significance. Dee meticulously recorded these letters, sometimes alongside complex grids and sigils, maps of the angelic realms, or instructions for summoning. The characters are not merely letters, they are keys, shapes imbued with meaning and energy, designed to resonate in ways that the human eye and voice can barely comprehend. Contemporary occultists who attempt Enochian rituals speak of the physical and psychological effects of writing, visualizing, or vocalizing these symbols. The language is described as living, dynamic, and dangerous. A single mispronunciation or misstep may invite confusion, fear, or what can only be described as malevolent attention from the forces the practitioner is attempting to engage. Even more unnerving are the accounts from historical and modern practitioners who insist that the words themselves possess power. The angels sometimes instructed Dee and Kelley to speak specific phrases or sequences to open doors to hidden knowledge or to command spiritual entities. In some cases, the instructions were precise to the point of compulsion. A certain combination of letters, a measured intonation, and a posture or gesture could supposedly alter reality, summon visions, or invoke a presence that was tangibly felt in the room. These experiences were not benign. Dee himself often recorded anxiety, dread, and disorientation following sessions, and Kelley described sensations of being physically constrained or assaulted by unseen forces. The language, then, was not merely symbolic. It was functional, a tool whose use required both courage and caution, a linguistic architecture capable of channeling forces that might lie outside the realm of human morality or comprehension. Ultimately, the Enochian language embodies the central paradox of Enochian magic itself, a system designed to reveal divine truth, yet inherently alien, resistant to comprehension, and imbued with a potential for danger that has terrified generations of practitioners. It is a reminder that knowledge, especially knowledge that claims to touch the divine, comes with a cost, and that language, often the tool we use to structure reality, can itself become a gateway to experiences that are profoundly unsettling, terrifying, and perhaps even inhuman. When we think of angels, most envision beings of light, benevolent guides who appear in human history to comfort, protect, and instruct. The angels of Enochian magic, however, do not conform to such comforting images. John Dee and Edward Kelley recorded countless encounters with entities that identified themselves as angels, yet their behavior, instructions, and even their very presence often carried an unsettling ambiguity. These beings were described in meticulous detail, complete with names, sigils, and ranks within a complex celestial hierarchy, yet they did not radiate the reassuring serenity one might expect of divine messengers. Instead, they were strange, often imposing presences that commanded attention, demanded obedience, and conveyed wisdom that was at times deeply disturbing. The angels appeared during seances in a variety of ways, sometimes through Kelley's scrying crystal, at other times through direct dictation to Dee. Their names were elaborate, their forms occasionally described as radiant, yet alien, with qualities that defied earthly understanding. They spoke with authority and precision, delivering instructions that ranged from spiritual guidance to directives that challenged moral and social norms. Dee and Kelley were meticulous in recording these interactions, producing a wealth of journals that detail not only the words spoken, but also the emotional weight of the encounters. The angels often seemed to observe Dee and Kelley with intense scrutiny, as if evaluating their worthiness or testing their devotion. But whether these tests were benevolent or manipulative is difficult to determine. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of these communications was the content of the angels' commands. Far from always offering insight or comfort, the angels sometimes demanded actions that would have been morally repugnant by the standards of their time, and certainly by ours. Dee and Kelley were instructed to perform rituals and behaviors that blurred the line between obedience and coercion, including morally and ethically troubling directives involving their personal lives. These instructions suggest a subtle and sometimes overt manipulation. The angels were not merely teachers or guides, but powerful forces capable of exerting psychological influence, bending human behavior to their will. The line between divine authority and authoritarian control becomes almost impossible to discern. Scholars and occultists have noted striking parallels between these angels and the demons described in grimoires and other occult traditions. Both types of entities are often described as commanding, morally ambiguous, and capable of causing fear or harm. Yet Enochian angels carry an additional layer of authority because they claim a divine mandate. This combination, divine claim and morally troubling command, creates a tension that has left generations of practitioners questioning whether the beings are truly benevolent, truly holy, or something else entirely. They operate in a space where human understanding falters, where obedience to their instructions can lead to enlightenment or terror, and where the consequences of failure are profoundly unsettling. Even their physical manifestations during the sessions contribute to their eerie ambiguity. Kelley would enter a trance, describing figures that shimmered with light or moved with unnatural precision, while Dee meticulously recorded every word and gesture. Their appearances were both awe-inspiring and disquieting, as if the angels were simultaneously magnificent and indifferent to human comprehension. Practitioners who followed Enochian methods later reported similar experiences, sensations of being observed, a pressure in the air that was almost tangible, a mixture of reverence and fear that seemed to ripple through the very space in which the rituals were conducted. These accounts suggest that Enochian angels were not merely abstract guides, but active, present forces, capable of affecting the minds and bodies of those who attempted to interact with them. Ultimately, the angels of Enochian magic embody ambiguity itself. Their names, their sigils, their complex hierarchy suggest order and divine purpose, yet their instructions, their presence, and their capacity for manipulation raise profound questions. Were they benevolent guides, offering a glimpse into the divine architecture of the universe? Or were they something far more cunning, entities that exploited human desire for knowledge, obedience, and spiritual advancement for purposes beyond comprehension? Dee and Kelley's experiences leave no definitive answer, only a lingering sense of unease, a reminder that even the highest and most luminous beings in the universe may carry shadows within them. The angelic communications recorded by Dee and Kelley were not merely exercises in intellectual curiosity or spiritual elevation. They contained moments of profound horror, instructions and visions that would shake the mind and unsettle even the most devout. Among the most infamous of these revelations were demands that crossed moral, social, and human boundaries, illustrating that these were not angels of comfort, but entities operating according to rules incomprehensible to ordinary ethics. Perhaps the most shocking of these commands was the instruction that Dee and Kelley share their wives as part of the angelic ritual. This was not a metaphorical suggestion or a symbolic test. The angels delivered it with an air of divine authority, a direct, coercive directive that forced the men to confront the boundaries of obedience, morality, and their own humanity. The psychological impact of such instructions cannot be overstated. Dee and Kelley were intelligent, educated men, yet they found themselves trapped between the desire to obey what they believed was a higher will and the instinctive horror of the acts demanded. But the horror of Enochian revelations extended beyond morally unsettling instructions. Dee and Kelley were shown apocalyptic visions, cosmic wars, and images of destruction on scales that defied comprehension. They described landscapes scorched by fire, celestial battles that threatened the balance of the universe, and humanity teetering on the edge of annihilation. These were not passive visions. They carried with them a weight, a sense that the forces behind these revelations were not neutral or benevolent observers, but active participants in shaping the human experience. The intensity of these visions left Dee physically shaken, emotionally drained, and perpetually anxious, a testament to the immense psychological toll that these angelic interactions exacted. There is an unmistakable thread of coercion woven throughout these revelations. The angels demanded compliance, obedience, and trust, often presenting themselves as all-knowing authorities whose instructions must be followed without question. The more Dee and Kelley engaged with them, the more their lives were shaped by the instructions, schedules, and rituals imposed by these beings. The sense of autonomy was continually eroded, replaced by the pressure to align one's actions with the will of a power that may have been beyond human comprehension, or beyond human morality. Contemporary accounts of possession and demonic manipulation in other occult traditions mirror this dynamic. The practitioner is subjected to forces that appear divine, yet whose demands are deeply unsettling, sometimes violent, sometimes absurd, and always disorienting. The chilling aspect of Enochian horror lies not just in the instructions themselves, but in the uncertainty of intent. Were these angels testing Dee and Kelley, guiding them toward enlightenment, or were they exploiting human curiosity and obedience for motives that remain opaque? There are moments when their commands appear calculated to erode the psyche, to confuse morality, and to push the limits of endurance. The act of recording these communications, laborious, repetitive, and exacting, became a kind of ritual in itself, one that bound the men ever tighter to the power behind the words. The journals themselves are testament to this tension, meticulous, almost obsessive in detail, yet permeated by fear, doubt, and anxiety, as if Dee and Kelley were documenting not knowledge alone, but a creeping sense of existential dread. Even in modern study, those who attempt to engage with Enochian rituals report a similar sense of pressure, of an invisible hand guiding, observing, and sometimes punishing, often in ways that are subtle yet profoundly unsettling. The horror of these revelations is not merely theatrical or sensational, it is psychological, spiritual, and deeply existential. It challenges assumptions about obedience, morality, and the nature of authority itself, forcing the practitioner or the historian studying these events to confront the terrifying possibility that the beings they interact with may be neither benevolent nor fully comprehensible. The angels whisper, but their motives are opaque, their power undeniable, and the cost of their instructions is measured not in wealth or knowledge alone, but in the very integrity of the self. The question at the heart of Enochian magic, the question that has haunted scholars, magicians, and skeptics for centuries, is deceptively simple. Are these angels divine messengers, sent to illuminate humanity with knowledge from the heavens, or are they demonic deceivers, exploiting human ambition, curiosity, and weakness? The evidence, as always, is contradictory, leaving a tension that seems to resist resolution, a gap between awe and terror that mirrors the very experiences of Dee and Kelley themselves. Arguments for a divine origin begin with the structure and content of the revelations. The angels delivered a hierarchy that mirrors, in some ways, biblical and apocryphal traditions. Their names, orders, and ranks are reminiscent of the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones described in sacred texts, and their instructions, while occasionally morally challenging, often center on the pursuit of knowledge, spiritual discipline, and the understanding of cosmic laws. The Enochian language itself, so intricate and consistent, has been cited as evidence of an origin beyond the human mind. Its grammar, phonetics, and internal logic are unlike anything created by chance or human invention, suggesting that it might encode truths that are not accessible through conventional thought. Those who favor the divine interpretation see in the angel's insistence on obedience a reflection of divine rigor, a test of character and purity designed to prepare humanity to comprehend higher truths. Yet the case for demonic deception is equally compelling. The angels often gave instructions that were morally troubling, psychologically coercive, and socially disturbing. Dee and Kelley were instructed to share their wives, to follow rituals that imposed fear and stress, and to submit themselves entirely to the will of these beings. This mirrors patterns seen in other occult traditions where malevolent entities, masquerading as divine, manipulate and control the human mind. The psychological strain endured by Dee, the compulsive nature of Kelley's mediumship, and the coercive tone of the messages suggest that these entities may have been exploiting human desire for power and knowledge, leading the practitioners into situations where obedience came at the cost of morality, mental stability, and autonomy. The parallels with demonic possession, spiritual trickery, and blasphemous deception are difficult to ignore. There is also a third, more unsettling possibility, one that neither fully divine nor fully demonic adequately explains. Perhaps the Enochian angels are alien, inhuman intelligences, forces that operate according to rules entirely outside human comprehension, their motives opaque, their moral framework incomprehensible. Dee and Kelley may have perceived them as angels because of cultural conditioning and expectation, interpreting overwhelming and alien experiences through the lens of religion and ritual. If this is the case, the horror of Enochian magic is amplified. These are not messengers of God, nor agents of Satan, but entities whose very nature is incomprehensible to the human mind, whose instructions, visions, and interactions strain the psyche precisely because they defy any frame of reference that makes sense to us. The fear, confusion, and obsession that the system produces could be seen as an inevitable consequence of trying to engage with intelligences utterly alien to humanity. This unresolved tension, the impossibility of definitively categorizing the Enochian angels, remains one of the system's most haunting features. Every practitioner who engages with the language, the calls, and the rituals is confronted with the same question that plagued Dee and Kelley. Are these forces beneficent guides, malevolent deceivers, or something so fundamentally alien that our minds cannot even comprehend their purpose? The ambiguity is deliberate, perhaps intrinsic to the very structure of Enochian magic itself, leaving a lingering unease that survives centuries, passed down through manuscripts, rituals, and whispered warnings. To engage with Enochian magic is to stand at the edge of certainty and doubt, to confront entities whose power is undeniable, whose intent is opaque, and whose influence can alter not only perception, but the deepest understanding of morality, obedience, and the self. After centuries of study, ritual, and speculation, the question that defines Enochian magic remains as elusive and haunting as it was in the chambers of John Dee and Edward Kelley. When the angels speak, who, or what, is really speaking? Across the vast network of journals, angelic calls, and meticulous instructions, there is no definitive answer, only evidence of a system that is profoundly powerful, deeply alien, and potentially perilous. The beings behind the language may be divine messengers, offering a glimpse into the hidden architecture of the cosmos. They may be demonic deceivers, exploiting human ambition and curiosity for their own inscrutable purposes. Or they may be something entirely outside human understanding, forces so alien that our attempts to classify them as good or evil are inevitably inadequate. The horror of Enochian magic lies precisely in this ambiguity. Dee and Kelley's experiences demonstrate that engagement with these forces is not a neutral or academic exercise. It is a confrontation with entities capable of shaping perception, influencing morality, and testing the limits of the human mind. The language itself, the calls, the rituals, and the visions are all instruments of this engagement, a structured pathway into experiences that are simultaneously awe-inspiring and terrifying. Later occultists, secret societies, and ceremonial magicians have confirmed this duality, reporting that Enochian practice can illuminate, empower, and inspire, yet at the same time unsettle, destabilize, and even terrify. It is a system that demands respect, caution, and a recognition that the pursuit of ultimate knowledge may carry consequences that extend far beyond intellectual understanding. And yet, despite, or perhaps because of, this danger, Enochian magic continues to captivate. The allure is undeniable. The promise of communication with entities that transcend the human, the potential to glimpse hidden truths, the seductive power of a language that resonates with energy beyond ordinary comprehension. But with this allure comes an enduring sense of dread, the knowledge that what is presented as divine revelation may conceal something alien, manipulative, or even malevolent. Every ritual, every whispered invocation, every careful pronunciation of the Enochian letters carries with it the possibility of illumination or terror, a reminder that the boundary between knowledge and madness, obedience and coercion, light and shadow is thinner than we like to imagine. In the end, the story of Enochian magic is not one that resolves neatly into categories of good or evil, divine or demonic. It is a story of power, mystery, and enduring psychological and spiritual tension. Dee and Kelley's journals remain, a testimony to the allure and danger of a system that promises the heavens but delivers experiences that are as terrifying as they are enlightening. The angels, or whatever forces they truly were, continue to whisper through the centuries, echoing in the minds of those who dare to study them. Their motives unreadable, their power undeniable, their presence eternal. And as long as their words persist, the central question remains: when the angels speak, who or what is really listening? And what are they truly saying?